Now, why is it so important, the depth of the seat? Because sometimes it happens that you're not using the most suitable saddle, the most suitable shape of seat for your riding. That means that you're kind of, I say, fighting with the saddle. Hi, this is Filippo Rancati. I'm the saddle fitter for Prestige Italia. And in this video of Saddle Up, we're gonna talk about the seat, its depth, and the balance point. Now, why is it so important, the depth of the seat? Because it affects a lot the way the saddle is balanced on the horse, but mostly how the rider sits in the saddle. When we talk about depth of the seat, we're talking about the curve of the seat. So the more this curve is high, the more the cantle is high, the more the seat is deep. This is not only the important thing. Really important is also the balance point. So we can have a balance point which is in the middle. In this, like in this saddle, we can have much more forward balance point, backward balance point. Why the balance point is so important? Where the balance, the lowest point of the saddle is. Because when we relate this balance point to the position of the stirrup bar, this is what creates the balance of the rider. The more the distance it's gonna be long between the balance point and the stirrup bar, the more the rider is gonna sit in the saddle. The more the balance point and the stirrup bar are gonna be close together, the more the rider is gonna stay on the stirrup and it's gonna have a vertical position. Now, there's no good and wrong in saddle fitting, so we always have to think about different riders, different horses, different body shapes. We're not only talking about height, we're also talking about body proportion. So different rider, although the same height, they might need different saddle, different balance points because of their different technique, because of their different body proportion, because of the difference that there's between the horse that they're riding. So now we have a saddle. It's melody deep. As the name says, it's quite a deep saddle. We have a balance point that is quite to the center, and the distance between the stirrup bar here and the balance point, it's quite average. So it's like a standard length. It's a saddle that is quite safe for the rider. The rider feels quite safe in the saddle and in a steady position, although he has freedom of movement. Here, when we move to other saddle, we have Venus Type K. Here we're talking about a seat that it's a little bit less deep than the one we saw before. The balance point, although it's a little bit more forward, so the rider is sitting a little bit more close to the pommel of the saddle. This is the pommel. The combination of the seat a little bit less deep, but the balance point a little bit forward gives anyway quite a forward position and safe position to the rider, but it changes a little bit how it works. Here we have D2K monoflap. So D2K in Prestige K means it's monoflap. It's quite a deep seat. As you can see, the cantle is quite high. And when you look at the balance and the position of the stirrup bar, the balance point and the stirrup bar are really close together. So this saddle gives a really forward position on the saddle. It puts you really close to the panel in order to be really short on the horse and create less pressure in the back. Here, for example, we have D2K free. It is the same tree of the D2K, lower cantle, so it's a medium deep saddle. It's not as deep. The balance point shifts a little bit backwards, so the distance between the balance point and the stirrup bar becomes a little bit longer, and that creates a little bit more freedom for the rider to move in the saddle. That's why it's called free. It gives the rider a little bit the sensation of freedom. This is a Brillante. Brillante has a little bit lower cantle, for example, of the D2K, but has a little bit higher cantle compared to the D2K free. As you can see, the tree is slightly longer in this case, so the balance point, it's a little bit backwards compared to the one of the D2K, and the distance between the stirrup bar and the balance point, it's a little bit bigger than it is, for example, in this saddle. That means that you're gonna have a little bit more freedom of movement, and you're gonna sit a little bit more backwards on the horse compared to that saddle. Again, it's not better or worse. It's just that in Prestige, we try to give as many solutions as possible for different riders, different body shapes, in order to give a nice and comfortable sensation for the rider to sit on the horse and in the saddle. Also, in the jumping saddle, we have different seats, different depth. We start, for example, from Michel Robert. We have a medium deep seat. Balance point, it's quite forward. You can see here that the front part of the seat, it's quite low, and then the cantle goes up quite fast. So this is a solution. And we have the stirrup bar and the balance point that are quite on top of each other. Here in E-stick, for example, we see that the balance point, it's a little bit more backwards, so the saddle fits a little bit bigger. But in this case, we put the stirrup bar a little bit more backwards. So you see that balance point and the stirrup bar are quite overlap anyway. Meredith, it's not really deep, it's quite flat, but the main thing is that the balance point, it's really shift backwards for those riders that need a little bit more room to use their balance on the horse. So you see that stirrup bar and balance point are quite far from each other. This is Rubino. This version is medium deep, and you see that the balance point, stirrup bar are at an average distance. Here is the deep version. We also give it in medium flat. Here is experience. This one that we have over here is the medium flat. So you see that the balance point of the saddle and the stirrup bar are a little bit further apart. That's what happens when you have a deeper or a flatter seat. For example, these seats are really close together. When you look at the flat seat, you see that it goes up a little bit slower. So not only is the balance point, it's a little bit more backwards, but we have a balance point that it's a little bit bigger. Like it's not so defined in one point, but it's a little bit wider. When we go for a deeper seat, not only the canter going higher creates a little bit more forward balance point, but also it's a little bit more defined. So let's say that when you have a deep seat, it's really putting you in a defined position of the saddle. So you're really placed on top of the saddle, and the saddle puts you really in that position. The more flat you go, the more you can put yourself in different position on the saddle without going against the balance point. Why the balance point is it so important for the rider? Because sometimes it happens that you're not using the most suitable saddle, the most suitable shape of seat for your riding. That means that you're kind of, I say, fighting with the saddle. For example, let's talk about Michel Robert. The saddle wants you in this place. Michel Robert, it's to be a jumping saddle, it's quite deep, and he wants you to sit here in the front of the seat. You as a rider feel more comfortable sitting backwards. What happens is that you sit backwards and the saddle shifts you forward. You want to sit backwards and the saddle shifts you forward. So you're fighting constantly to keep your balance because the saddle wants you in another balance. Opposite case scenario. Meredith, you really feel comfortable sitting forward in the saddle, but the saddle doesn't support you. So you need to use a much bigger effort of your muscle to stay in the position you feel comfortable. So again, you're fighting with the balance of the saddle. The saddle gives you room to sit backwards, but you want a saddle that supports you to stay in the front. So let's say that when you try a saddle and when you ride with a saddle, the balance point and the depth of the seat, it's really important so that you can think about something else. You don't have to concentrate on your position too much because the saddle is doing its job. That's how important it is to ride with the right saddle for you. This is all for this video. Saddle up, ride smart.